Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Point of Jew. I am your Jew, VJ Hirsch, Jeremy Hirsch. And at Point of Jew, I'm here not only to entertain me, but entertain you. That works. Let's keep that. This week, super excited to have Alex Naveja on the show. Alex is, of course, the host of Sideline Sports Podcast, and he covers a wide range of sports. I've seen him do soccer, baseball, basketball, hockey. Talks about everything. We're going to get into a little bit of, I think, mostly just football and baseball with some other things this week. Lots of transactions and stuff going on in baseball, and then obviously Super Bowl coming up in the NFL. So a lot to kind of go over there, but we'll touch on some of the other sports too, I'm sure. Really excited for you guys to listen to this, and that's Alex Naveja of Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sidelines, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Alex, I hope I did you justice on that one. Aside from that, what's brewing this week, huh? Put it out on social a little bit, and what I wanted to do is I have focused more now just kind of on the YouTube channel. I know I was on iTunes, and I was on Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and I was kind of breaking down the statistics. I know I'm not doing this a tremendously long time, but the bulk of people watch the podcast or listen to it or have it as just amazing background noise off of YouTube. So just going to focus on that versus splitting time and doing, the audio only version of the show and the YouTube show. So it may come a time when I do put it back out, on the podcast specific sites. But for now, just strictly going to stick to YouTube. So hopefully that's okay. But in the spirit of that, I really, really am trying to get to 100 subs on YouTube. Why? Partially my own vanity, of course. But no, once I have 100 subs, I can have a customized channel. So instead of, youtube.com/insert Wookiee noise here, it can actually be, youtube.com/point of Jew. So easier for me to direct people to. So in the spirit of that, and I try to have not super complicated giveaways. Maybe the last one was, I don't know. If you subscribe, and you could currently be a subscriber, that's cool. Subscribe and comment on any of the videos to be entered for that giveaway. And what that giveaway will be is the winner will get a $25, or I don't know if Netflix has 25, but whatever their equivalency is, I'll be giving a gift card away for either Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon. So you guys can enjoy any of the quality television programming and or movies that they provide, since, a lot of times on What's Brewing, I rant about shows or movies or what have you, kind of fits thematically. So we'll do that. That'll be a thing. Once I hit 100 subscribers, we'll do the drawing. So anyone who is a subscriber that comments on any of the videos, and it could be as simple as good job, love content, or boo, or insert noise here, whatever you want to comment, please do. And that'll enter you for that drawing for one of those gift cards. I was going to do like an Amazon Fire Stick or something, but seems to be that some feedback from asking some people who follow the show, the gift card thing is a little bit better of an idea. And I'm cool with that. I will keep plugging that. I just wanted to go a little bit more in depth and talk about, some of these other things as to what's leading me to focus on YouTube. I'm also going to try and build not a great website. I'm not trying to downplay it or anything like that. I'm going to hopefully make a website in the next few weeks to kind of house everything as well. That may be a great idea. That may be a stupid idea. Time will tell. It's probably somewhere in between. But without further ado, I'm super excited to actually have another sports guest. As we mentioned in the past, I did a baseball podcast with some friends and love talking about sports, love talking about baseball. Am rocking my baseballism 3 up, 3 down shirt. I'm not paid or sponsored by them, but baseballism is really cool for baseball related tees and some other really nice things. I have a leather first baseman's mitt keychain my father-in-law got me from there as well. They have I think actual glove leather handbags for women, and then men's and ladies tees. So they have a lot of cool stuff. Their designs are really cool and kind of, I know I'm being silly saying this, a lot of inside baseball type stuff. So I just wanted to give them a shout out because I like their stuff. And I get their tees a lot. So yeah, again, not promoted, but feel like giving them a shout out. So Baseballism, thank you for cool stuff that I purchased. But you can sponsor if you want to. I'm not throwing that out the window. But without further ado, let's get into some real talk. Sideline Sports Podcast host, Alex Naveja. Welcome, everybody, to this week's Point of View. I'm really excited to be able to talk sports once again. My guest this week is a play-by-play announcer, hosts the phenomenal Sideline Sports Podcast, Alex Naveja. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I know with Sideline Sports, if you're not on the sidelines, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Am I right?
You got the slogan just right. I mess around with my family all the time to just asking them, hey, what's my slogan? What's the slogan? And they never get it right. But Jeremy, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm so thrilled to talk about sports, not just the sideline sports, but just everything that's going on. I feel like we've got so much to talk about, so much to cover. And you know what? That time's just going to fly by.
It's a loaded show this week for our sports fans, and you are officially the furthest away guest I've had. Alex is out in California.
Yeah, I'm all the way in Los Angeles. We're pretty far away from each other. Easy to say, West Coast versus East Coast type of thing going on.
That'll definitely come into play when we hit baseball. But since you are in LA. One of the bigger stories out of this week is the year anniversary since, unfortunately, the untimely death of Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and obviously several others. But just to kind of recap in terms of that space, as someone who lives out in LA, what did watching Kobe and his impact in the area, what kind of effect did that have? I mean, what kind of void has that left?
Well, I'll tell you where I was when it all happened. When I heard the news, it was still pretty early in the morning, and I received a text from one of my friends, and she tells me, hey, Kobe died. And I told her, hey, don't play with me like that. Like, don't even joke like that. That's not funny. So I immediately, my journalism instincts go on. I look it up, and I see TMZ is the first one to report on it, and I didn't believe it. It's like TMZ, I just don't feel like they're credible or anything. So I was doing all my research, ESPN, Fox Sports, everywhere that you can think of. I put it on Spectrum Sports where the Laker games are being streamed. Nobody was reporting a thing. It wasn't until maybe an hour or two where it started to slowly come in. Even the reporters and the hosts and the anchors from ESPN were pretty shocked, very surprised, as was I. And you knew something had happened because, SoCal is so known for its sunny days, and it was just so gloomy, foggy. It hit the heart so hard. Like that day I had a game that I had to broadcast, and it was just so tough to carry on with the broadcast. I pushed through it, and you just knew it was dark days for LA. And you know what the conspiracy theory goes? After Kobe's death, it hasn't been the same here in LA. Like, I think it really took the championship of the Lakers, including the Dodgers, to really get our spirits up and to just get everybody in good spirits. But there's murals all over the place in downtown LA. I was there in LA Live. I paid my respects. I bought some flowers, some candles, and I paid my respects, paid my dues. I left them there. But you know what? I have to be completely honest. A lot of people brought basketball shoes. They brought some Kobe's. They were bringing shoes. They were bringing basketballs. It was all over the place. It kind of makes my candle look like nothing. Kind of wish I brought more, but it was definitely a tough blow all over LA. And as much as I wanted to go to that ceremony, I really wanted to go to Staples, be there to just see everybody remember and not just, grieve about it, but celebrate his life. I know he would want all of us to remember his life, the work ethic, him as a father figure, him being a coach for younger girls basketball players. And he hits a lot of people, not just in the sports world, but just in all facets that you think about.
100%. And that's just a monumental figure. He's one of the few figures that really transcends sports into the public conscience. So thank you for sharing that. That's tremendous. And I think just by showing up and appreciate them. Your candle was definitely more than enough. I think that I would have been happy with that. You mentioned that you were broadcasting that day, and I know you've done play-by-play for California State University, San Marcos, and Cerritos College. You've done baseball, softball, men's and women's basketball, soccer. You're a bilingual reporter. And your degree, I believe, same as mine, is in journalism. I think you, if I got this correctly, you graduated from California State University, Long Beach?
Yeah, that's my alma mater. That's where my roots originally started, there at Long Beach State. When I was with Cerritos College, I was working with the newspaper, and I was trying to get into more in that avenue. And I kind of figured it wasn't really like what I wanted to do. It wasn't until my family really told me, and hey, you know what? If you're really into the sports business, why don't you look into broadcasting? Like, what does it take to get into that? And so that's how I knew, like, wow, that sounds like a good idea. But a funny part was they told me you should get into that. One, because you don't know how to shut up. And two, you know how to shut up about sports. And I was thinking, you know what? If this isn't the perfect job for me, I don't know what is. So just it started off with Long Beach State. Really just I found that internship with the radio station with 22 West. And I was an intern, started off as just like a basketball analyst, which showing continuously going to the radio station. They offered me a hosting opportunity. So I started hosting those pregame, halftime, postgame shows for men's basketball. And after that, baseball season came along, the famous Long Beach State Dirtbags. I wanted to get into that booth, play-by-play, and I did. Very rough, very cringy, very hard to listen to early broadcasting. But I just pushed forward, continued, and that's when I just started collecting opportunities. Once I graduated from Long Beach State, I was looking for a job. That's where I stumbled upon Cal State San Marcos, and I've been fortunate enough to be the voice for their men's and women's soccer, along with their men's and women's basketball and baseball. And along with receiving those opportunities, I also started to get some more opportunities with Cal State Northridge, taking care of their men's and women's soccer, along with now broadcasting with the National Independent Soccer Association with a production crew called TV Emax. And we've been producing games, and we've been pretty consistent on that. We started off as a small production crew, but now we're beginning to grow a little bit more because we were producing games for a soccer league called the United Premier Soccer League. Then we started to see another soccer league starting to grow. So we moved into there, and I will tell you one thing. It's a growing league. It is getting bigger. The NISA, National Independent Soccer Association, there's teams over there on the East Coast, a lot of New York teams. There's a couple of teams over there on the East Coast. So I would definitely be on the lookout for those, and just continuously just waiting for more opportunities to come. And of course, with the Spanish route too, that's something that I really am adapting to. You know, this is something that has been pushed by not just my family, but my dad. My dad has always told me, practice your Spanish in Spanish, of course. And he told me, do it. And it finally hit me pretty hard. I think it's knocked me out pretty hard. And now I'm really just trying to pursue that Spanish market to cater not just the English market, but I want to cater to the Spanish market as well.
I think that's great that you're getting all these, looking for opportunities, taking advantage when you have it. I think that's great advice. I know a lot of people will sometimes fall off when they hit a wall. I'm one of those people at certain points in times, but no, it's about making the most of your opportunity. I think that's good advice for anybody who's a current journalism student, that as we both were, find your opportunities, take your internships, keep focusing, keep pushing. But with a lot of these, broadcasting opportunities that you've come across, and we were talking about this a little bit, before we started on here, how has the pandemic kind of affected, obviously it's affected everything. It's affected sports tremendously. What did it look like when the pandemic was hitting and, people were, not able to have sports for a bit? Like, how are you kind of keeping your sanity? And now that, that they're not trending normal per se, but how have you been adapting in general with this?
Hey, Jeremy, don't let this front say that I'm staying sane. It's still pretty crazy over here in SoCal. It's at the moment right now, things are starting to open up. A lot of us are kind of scratching our head at the moment right now, just because we don't really see numbers going down. I have a friend, she actually works in Kaiser, and she's telling me, hey, numbers are going down, but testing is going down also. So it's kind of like, hey, what's going on there? Like, why are you guys reducing the number of tests to try to reduce the number of positive cases? But as far as the sports front right now, once the pandemic hit, it just everything canceled. And March Madness, all of these conference tournaments here in the Big West, Pac-12, the West Coast Conference, the Western Athletic Conference, all of them just stopped their tournaments. It was in the middle of those tournaments. Everything was shut down. And I was in the middle of calling baseball because my basketball season had already ended as far as for Division II NCAA with San Marcos for basketball. And their baseball season was already full send, and they were already in the middle of their conference season as well. And it was just like if you just flick the switch, everything just got canceled left and right. I was doing soccer. I was doing high school baseball. I was doing San Marcos baseball. And out of nowhere, I'm receiving text messages left and right, emails. We're canceling the season. We're canceling the season, the pandemic. And just, I was even unemployed for a couple of months as well. I was working part-time as a sales associate over here in this gym that I work at. And the pandemic has just hit SoCal very hard. And even then, after being out for a couple of months, they tried reopening everything. I went back to work, but even then we just still felt like that wasn't enough. A lot of people here just, they don't want to listen. A lot of people don't want to wear the masks, don't want to social distance. There's gatherings going on right now. And for crying out loud, we don't have any people here in Staples Center right now with Lakers and the Kings going on. And it's so unfortunate. We want to have fans. Oh, and also SoFi, brand new football stadium for the Rams and for the Chargers, and no fans. I was trying to go to a Rams and a Chargers game, and no can do. And then you look in the TV, and you see the Chiefs in Arrowhead. They have fans over there, like just everywhere except for LA here in SoCal. No fans at all. But I want to say that things are looking better, and I feel as though once baseball season starts, I feel like there will be fans, but with a very limited capacity. And I feel like because it's baseball and it's outdoors, it will be much easier to bring in fans as compared to for Staples Center, for any hockey or basketball in that matter.
Yeah, you have too many people in close proximity, not open air. No, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, yeah.
But I know we just mentioned football, and my condolences to the Rams.
That was definitely a very tough game, but you know what? All you can do is just tip your cap to Aaron Rodgers. That is a very talented quarterback, and just that the defense also getting the better end of Jared Goff and keeping him pretty quiet. And I have to give it to the Rams also. They stayed in the game until the final moments of the game. Once Green Bay just said checkmate, it was done. It was a wrap. And I think for what's to come for the Rams, I think the team should stay the way it is, but maybe bring in a much better offensive line to be able to buy Jared Goff some time. And I think that's all he needs, is give him some time in the pocket. He'll make things happen. Or if you guys want another quarterback, go with John Wolford. John Wolford is a mobile quarterback. He is the opposite of Jared Goff. I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but you don't need a Deshaun Watson. There's rumors, apparently, Aaron Rodgers to LA. That would be very nice, but I just don't feel like they need it. I think they would be fine with John Wolford maybe being that guy. Even Jared Goff, just get a good O-line to protect him, give him a couple more seconds in the pocket, and things will happen.
It's funny because that's exactly what I was going to ask you next, what you thought about the rumblings and the rumors. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, so I mean, you got in-house options. So I think ultimately, I do think Aaron Rodgers does stay in Green Bay. Watson, I think, really wants to, from everything I hear, either go to the Jets or Dolphins. And I'm a Giants fan, admittedly, not
Wow,
the best of seasons
okay.
for us, but some sunlight. But I also like the Jets. That's like blasphemy to say that I like the Giants and the Jets, but they play in the same stadium. They only play each other once every 4 years. I don't know. Watson definitely could be a fit there. Obviously, the new coach over there from the Niners, things are starting to shape up and look a little bit actually optimistic for Jets fans for the first time and since way before I was born. But those are interesting solutions. But based on what we've been seeing, we now have the Super Bowl kind of set in stone. We have Tom Brady in Tampa for Tampa, playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. And what are you thinking of that matchup? You know, can someone other than Eli Manning and obviously the Eagles one time stop Tom Terrific from capturing yet another Super Bowl?
Jeremy, there's no easy answer to this. And Tom Brady always finds his way in the most difficult situations. I mean, you recall back to that Super Bowl with the Atlanta Falcons, coming back 25 points. I was watching that Super Bowl, and I just thought it was ridiculous. It's never been done. But you know what? Tom Brady's one of those guys, if you put the odds in front of him, he says, I'm going to break your odds. I'm going to get the job done. But you see Patrick Mahomes, he comes along and he also tells Tom Brady, you know what, you may be the GOAT, but I'm the GOAT in the making right now. I'm the young kid in the block that I'm about to kick out the old guy right now. And I'm going to be that guy coming in with back-to-back right here. And I'm pretty sure he might fill up that hand too. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. There's no really real easy answer for that. Tom Brady has so much experience, but then you look at Patrick Mahomes, he just has just a rhythm going for himself. He just looks so smooth and he always makes things happen. I mean, these are two different quarterbacks. You see a veteran Tom Brady that stays in the pocket and will go in the passing game or just hand it off to his backs. And then you have a Patrick Mahomes where he looks at his options. Oh, option one's not good. Option two's not open. Oh, okay, I'm going to run it myself. And he's a guy that'll always make things happen. And he comes up with some insane trick plays, nice little finger flips. You know, it's insane to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be a fun Super Bowl for sure. It's not going to be one of those Rams-Patriots Super Bowl where it was – on the defensive side. I think it's going to be another one like last year. These are pretty similar quarterbacks. If you really think about it, it was Jimmy Garoppolo who his mentor was Tom Brady. And if you look at Jimmy G, he plays just like Brady also. He's not a mobile quarterback. He's all pocket. I'm staying there. So if you really think about it, Ed Reed is going to do he's going to watch film and he's going to see, hey, this is almost like another 49ers team. I mean, one can argue if the defenses are the same because 49ers defense was almost like the Great Wall of China. I'll tell you that right now. But you know, no disrespect to the Bucs. The Bucs have a great defense as well, but you are facing a quarterback that are very similar, but of course one with an amazing resume. But I'm just going to say it's going to be a fun Super Bowl. I'm sorry, Jeremy. I can't give you a prediction on who will win because I can't even tell anybody myself right now.
You're not leaning one way or the other?
I would most likely pick the Chiefs if I had to choose one. Like I said, Patrick Mahomes is just one of those guys that always seem to make things happen, and he's turning into Mr. Clutch himself. And when it comes down to it, when you make things happen out of nothing, that's what it's all about.
I
That's what
think
it's all
that you're
about.
100% right on that gut feeling. I don't know. People focused on Tom after the Bucks beat the Packers, but if you look at that game, Tom Brady wasn't like that phenomenal or wasn't a return to form. The Packers mostly beat themselves that game and didn't capitalize on good opportunities. They had that really stupid penalty at the end, where how much more flagrant of a hold do you want than you're, whipping the guy's jersey around in your hand. It wasn't the normal Tom Brady drove this victory. It was kind of dominance in the first half and then just a lot of poor capitalization or lack thereof, I should say, from the Packers. So if you have a repeat performance and you have a quarterback, like Mahomes, who just makes things happen, I do think that they could take advantage. I think it's going to be, like you said, a fun sort of shootout of a game. I do think the Chiefs are going to win, and I do think it will be a close game, though.
If you're the Chiefs right now, you have to force Tom Brady to make these ridiculous passes. I mean, 3 straight possessions and 3 straight picks. That's not Tom Brady numbers. So that has to be a weakness for the Bucks. That D line's got to come in pounding through that O line and put the pressure on Brady and make him uncomfortable in the pocket. Make him move around. Make him do some moves that he's doesn't do on a regular basis, and make him make some decisions that, what are you doing, Tom Brady, type of decisions. And the Packers enforced those mistakes, but there were too many mistakes on the Packers side to really overcome that. You can only commit so many mistakes in a game that's going to be able to keep you in it and come up with that victory.
Oh, 100%. Well, I called the Bills Packers Super Bowl, and I was wrong on that. I'm hoping at least I'm right on the Chiefs. I give nothing but respect to Tom Brady. He's quite possibly the greatest quarterback of all time. I think the resume supports that. And now that he's not a Patriot, I can feel better if he does win versus he was, still up in New England. But we'll have to see. But right now in this time of year, as much as I do like football, my favorite sport is baseball. And things have been moving and moving and moving now after a slow start, to the offseason. And one of the teams, and I apologize, and you guys will have to actually check out Alex's video kind of going over the San Diego Padres. But the Padres have been popping with moves left and right, acquiring Darvish, acquiring Snell, acquiring Musgrove from Pittsburgh. They re-signed Jurickson Profar for a utility role because he's been phenomenal for them. Looking at sort of the SoCal teams, what moves have you liked? What do you see each of them doing? The Dodgers have been somewhat dangerously quiet. They've got a move or two probably left in them. We'll see if they re-sign Justin Turner. But what do you see for the SoCal teams? What have you make of those moves, and where do you see, the teams going? Maybe the Padres don't have that much room to go anymore, but what are your thoughts? What are you seeing?
I'll first start with the San Diego Padres. This is a deadly team that have done everything in their power to say, Dodgers, scoot over. We want that #1 spot. We're going to end your division consecutive years that you guys have been winning and taking the NL West. And with the acquisitions of Darvish from the Cubs and Musgrove from the Pirates and Blake Snell from the Rays, I think the one that's going to really pack a punch against the Dodgers will be that Blake Snell trade.
100%.
And because of the difficulties that the Dodgers had in the World Series, I mean, the first time that the Dodgers faced off against Blake Snell, I believe that was game 2 or even game 3. I've been to lean more towards game 2.
I think it was game 2 because I think I can't believe I'm drawing blanks here for who started game 1. But yeah, moving on.
So, yeah, that guy, Blake Snell, just had his way against the Dodgers lineup. Was going through 1 through 9 like nothing, and the Dodgers just could not. They just couldn't read his off speed. They couldn't get to his fastball or anything. And it's just one of those days. You tip your cap to the other pitcher. He was on his game, and that's what it's all about. You win every pitch, pound the strike zone, have confidence when you're on the mound. That's how you win games as a pitcher. Now, if you ask me about Darvish and Musgrove, I still believe that the Dodgers can still get to them, but we'll get to that in momentarily. And the signing of Jurickson Profar was something that I believe was an underrated signing. It was something that needed to be done for the Padres. This is a great utility player. You got a guy that can play in second, that can play in left field, who has a great arm in left field. He has made some great assists out there in left field, even playing as a second baseman. Sometimes you got to move Cronenworth from second to first. Maybe you want to give the veteran Eric Hosmer a day off there. So it's nice that you shuffle the deck, move the guys around, move the checkered pieces. And I think what the Padres have going on is great, but who's going to be your closer? What does your bullpen look like? These three guys, I'm not giving enough credit to Lamet and Paddock, who have great pitching stuff. These guys aren't going to go 9 innings. They can maybe once or twice, but they can't do it every night. You need a great bullpen. I think the Padres need to invest in their bullpen. With the money that they have left, they need to look into a closer, and the market's starting to run low of relievers, of closers. And I think the Padres really do need to address that, because as we've all seen, bullpens win you not just games, championships.
The Royals format.
Exactly. Look at what the Royals had. The Royals had so many guys. They had Joaquin. I believe they had Joaquin Soria. They had Herrera. They also had Greg Holland. They had a great bullpen, and that's what it's all about. You got to have that pen to win you games. So with the Padres, I still see a hole in that. As for the Dodgers, they have absolutely reconstructed that whole entire bullpen. It's crazy. They've gotten Corey Knebel. They're gonna have Jimmy Nelson coming back from injury. They unfortunately let go of Alex Wood.
Giants picked him up.
The Giants unfortunately picked him up, but this bullpen is looking better. They re-signed Blake Trinan also. They let Pedro Baez walk also. He's signed with the Astros. So I think the Dodgers slept on Brad Hand, Kirby Yates. That could have been their new closer. The Dodgers need a closer. Jansen, he's done. He's checked out. I don't think he gets the nod in the 9th inning. I think he could be maybe a middle relief. I'm not giving him the ball in the 9th inning. So now the Dodgers, I believe, are in trouble. They have to go into the market and look for a closer. Yes, you're reconstructing your bullpen, but you still need a guy to get you your final 3 outs. Now, as far as the Turner sweepstakes, they wanted to get DJ. They were in on that signing if Justin Turner didn't re-sign with them.
Right.
At the moment, the Dodgers they are offering him 2 years. Turner wants 4. He is 36 years old. Dodgers do not want to sign him through while he's 40. They're also looking at the decrease in glove production and such, but the offensive numbers are still there. He's committing a little more errors there at third, but I think Turner should re-sign with the Dodgers. I don't see him going anywhere else. And even then, maybe you want to start giving Edwin Rios a prospect that they're really trying to give a little bit more Major League Baseball reps. We've seen him a couple of times. I know if you guys are familiar, he was there for hitting that long, and I mean long ball against the Astros. He just crushed it. That thing went a long way to just kind of seal that 2-game sweep over at Minute Maid Park. I think this is a guy that down the line could have a bright future with the Dodgers because of that bat production. And I think Turner needs to resign. If he does not resign, I think the Dodgers are going to have to act quick, inquire about Chris Bryant potentially. That's the word right now. Chris Bryant, a candidate. Potentially Kyle Seager. Imagine the Seagers on the left side of the infield. That would be pretty
cool
right there. And also Eugenio Suarez, also another guy from the Cincinnati Reds that they're also inquiring about. So Dodgers, Padres, going to be an interesting NL West. Angels, because of the new GM that they have, they're more looking into 1-year deals. They are just trying, it's more of a tryout type of thing. Who's going to work out? We're trying to reconstruct this team as well. No more long-term deals. Their long-term deals are already with Trout, with Brandon, with Upton. Those are just to name a few guys that have signed long-term deals. Now they have to start looking for some more infield help, I would say, because they need to have a dominant infield as well. That outfield, I would say, is still pretty stacked. Also, the question of, does Joe Adele get called back up also for the Angels? Is he ready? I'm going to say no. I think he needs to spend more time in AAA. But right now, the Angels need to address starting pitching as well. The lineup is already stacked. It's already very good, I would say, offensive numbers. But pitching-wise, they need to hold it down. They need to keep the other team quiet, especially if you're –
They've never had it, though. I mean, can you tell me and I'm not trying to dump on the Angels, and I know they have a new general manager, but can you remember in recent memory, and I don't count Shohei Ohtani because he was a rare two-way player, unheard of. Have they ever spent money in recent memory on pitching? That seems to have been a glaring weakness of theirs for well over a decade. I mean, I know they just picked up Jose Quintana, but he's not going to do it for you. He's a good stabilizing piece, but he ain't going to do it for you.
He's a nice addition to the Angels for sure. He has to stay healthy as well. I mean, Quintana has had a couple of health and a couple of injuries, not helping his favor and his chances right now. But I think the Angels need they need to do better in the pitching side. And to answer your question, I think the last one was C.J. Wilson. And even then, Wilson wasn't even –
He was on the downswing from the Rangers.
Exactly. They gave him a big contract. He did not answer to that signing of the contract, and they didn't see any production in C.J. Wilson. I think this 1-year deal, I think that's a better way to go than to sign these big blockbuster deals. Except if that Mike Trout contract, I think it should have been done. A lot of people will argue and say Mike Trout should have gone to another team to try to win a World Series. That's a player that absolutely deserves a World Series. But you have to respect his decision and staying loyal with the Angels and just
100%.
We're going to stick it through. I'm going to sign a contract. I'm here to stay. And I respect any player that will do that. Stay with that team and really just fight through the end and really do that. But they have to see whatever is left. They just announced that they're out on Trevor Bauer. And that, I would say, I think that could have made their team, but I feel like Trevor Bauer is still getting asked for too much. Bauer would be back home, former UCLA Bruin, and I think people are going to call me crazy. I think it was good that they are not in the chase for Trevor Bauer.
He is an unknown quantity, and I follow him on Twitter. I watch a lot of his videos just because he, hands down, is an entertaining person. It's very entertaining. I don't know in terms of, you hear a lot of things that players around the league have said about him, and maybe a lot of it is bolstered by the media. Maybe some of it's untrue or maybe exaggerated. But he seems like an unknown quantity in the instance of that personality rubbing people the wrong way. He's clearly a very talented pitcher. His teammates in Cincinnati seem to like him well enough. He got along with some of the guys. Like him and Clevenger are good friends. So, maybe the Padres could swing around and grab him too. Who knows at this point? But his personality seems to need a very specific fit. At some point, talent may not have to justify an inability to gel or mesh with your teammates. You could be the most talented player in the world, but it's not just you out there.
Absolutely. When it comes to Trevor Bauer, he was always a player that said, I'm only signing 1-year deals. And reports were coming in that he wanted something more than Garrett Cole as far as that annual earnings.
Over 36, yeah.
Over 36 for a 1-year contract? I don't know if any team wants to do that. It looks like the front runner team could be the Mets. And with that, trade done with the Toronto Blue Jays to let go of Steven Matz. Who knows? They're trying maybe to shed some money, maybe to potentially make that Trevor Bauer move, because the Mets are a team that are trying to make a case for that NL East, but things are really brewing there in the NL East. But going back to that Trevor Bauer, I don't think he's going to be signed anytime soon. I know a lot of signings, a lot of the big guys have already been signed, and I don't see him still signing even maybe late in spring training.
It's
Who
entirely
knows?
possible. If you had to pick 3 destinations for him, and I know you said the Mets seem likely, and there's rumors and reports that they've offered him a couple different structures for longer term, and he's come out and said that he's not against long-term deals. Some reporters are saying as long as a long-term deal features multiple opt-out options for him, because he's a guy that's been quoted as saying he bets on himself, which is why he always wants those one-year deals. Say maybe the Mets being number one, what are 1 or 2 other destinations you could potentially see for Trevor Bauer?
I think there's a pretty obvious one, the team that does have the money, and I would say the Dodgers. The Dodgers have come out with headlines that they're monitoring Trevor Bauer right now. They are looking where he's targeting and just really just snoozing around, just checking it out right now. The Dodgers could be a team that would want to improve. And you know what? For the sake of trying to keep up with the Padres with all the transactions, they may want to make a signing like that, because the Dodgers are a team that can offer him that money. And another team, and I'm going to go for it because they are already in the reconstruction of potentially a contender. I mean, I think they can make a case in keeping up with the Yankees and maybe –
Oh, I see where he's going.
pass the Toronto Blue Jays.
Blue Jays. I knew you were going to go Blue Jays.
Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, if you're already all in, might as well. Like, the pitching has always been the Toronto Blue Jays' weakness, but now in the last offseason, signing Hyun-Jin Ryu, you have Tanner Roark, and then you have Ray. You have Ray from the Arizona Diamondbacks, and now having Steven Matz. Now imagine having a Trevor Bauer on your team.
That's a solid rotation. I still, their offense, their lineup, I mean, they just obviously gave a huge commitment to George Springer. That 6-year, $150 million deal. They just signed Marcus Semien to a 1-year, $18 million deal. They got Tyler Chatwood for the rotation as a nice back end piece, and then obviously signing Kirby Yates for the pen, a legit closer, which we mentioned that the Padres and Dodgers honestly really could utilize. So they have a scary team, and then just the young talent they had before with Kevin Biggio and Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. and just that team is, to your point, hopefully not primed to overtake my beloved Yankees, but they are looking good, and I think they are, for better lack of a phrase, slept on, because there is so much talent that can be capitalized. And so, to your point, I think a Trevor Bauer does put them over the top, or at least puts them in the same conversation as the New York Yankees, because the Yankees, not to bogart the conversation a bit, but they re-signed DJ LeMahieu, which for the Yankees honestly was a must-have. I mean, DJ LeMahieu at 6 years, $90 million, $15 million annual average is a steal. He's one of the best contact hitters, not just in the American League, but in Major League Baseball. I was looking at his statistics. He has a 12.7% K rate, which is the 7th lowest in the entire league, and then he's 8th lowest in its swinging strikeout rate. So if DJ swings at a ball, he's going to put it in play. And I think for a home run heavy lineup like the Yankees have, that's paramount. And the big pitching signing for the Yankees, Corey Kluber. I know a lot of teams were in on him, including the Blue Jays and the Rays. Kluber's coming off of, surgeries. I think he's pitched 1 inning in about 3 years. He's a scary unknown. He's, they signed him for 1 year, $11 million. Eric Creasy, who has Creasy Performance, is where Kluber rehabs for his entire career. Creasy is actually also what is his actual title? I have it down here. He is a player health and performance advisor of the New York Yankees. With the amount of injuries they had over the past 2 years, that's probably a good advisor to have to keep them limber and on the field. And then if you saw the news yesterday talking about bullpens, a very under the radar move, but the Yankees signed Darren O'Day, who I'm super familiar with as a former member of the Baltimore Orioles, former Texas Ranger, was just with the Atlanta Braves. I know we had the truncated season last year, but in 16 and a third innings, he had a 1.10 ERA. Since 2012, he's only had 3 seasons higher than a 3 ERA. His strikeout rates, walk rates are some of the lowest in the league, and I think that's a little surprising. And that's actually kind of an under-the-radar signing that the Padres or the Dodgers could have looked at as well, even the Angels to bolster their pen. I think that's a tremendous move. The Yankees traded Adam Ottavino, who, you've probably seen a ton of times from when he was in Colorado, to the hated Boston Red Sox, who just helped the Yankees out by taking that almost $9 million of his remaining salary to give them the flexibility to make a move like this. So on paper, the Blue Jays and the Yankees, especially if they get Bauer, to your point, that does stack up pretty well.
They will definitely look very good. And as far as the Yankees are concerned, I have to say, I am very surprised and very shocked about still staying under that luxury tax. I've been seeing a lot of Yankee tweets out there, and a lot of people wanting a lot of things. And I'm just thinking, hey, the Yankees are coming pretty close. If they sign, at most you sign DJ, and then you sign maybe a pitcher or two. But is that really going to address all of your starting rotation like that? So I'm really liking the fact that the Yankees they're shedding their money and they're making the moves that are needed. Just right then and there, they made that Adam Ottavino trade, which helped them out to make another signing. And for cheap, they get a veteran sidearm pitcher in Darren O'Day, who I've always wanted as a Dodger, to see him with the Dodgers to bolster that bullpen like that. He's always been a great reliever, and the Yankees got him for cheap. And the Yankees, that bullpen is still pretty stacked. They're still pretty dominant. So even if they were to settle with a starting rotation that Yankee fans maybe would not be the happiest in, at least you have a bullpen that'll keep you late in the game. And then look at your lineup. You still have great guys. You still have Stanton. You still have Judge. Now you have DJ back. As a Yankee, you're hoping for the remainder of his career, you still have Gleyber Torres. You still have Tommy Urshela. You have so many weapons. You have Luke Voigt. That lineup for the Yankees is so dangerous.
It's very misleading though, because it is extremely, and that's one thing DJ helps alleviate. It is extremely strikeout heavy though, and extremely right hand dominant. One player that I bring him up right now because I think he has a fit on the Yankees. I think he has a fit on the Dodgers, and that's Texas Rangers' Joey Gallo.
Oh my gosh.
Not a lot of people are talking about him, but he makes, I think, a little over $4 million after arbitration. He plays first, third, and corners. Ton of pop. That doesn't help the Yankees strikeout problem, but left-handed pop, and can spell quite a few different people and positions. Do you think that Joey Gallo, one, is even on anyone's radar to be traded? And two, I certainly see him as a fit with the Yankees, and I think the Yankees do have the prospects to make that happen. But do you think that could be an option for the Dodgers should they fail to re-sign Justin Turner?
I think the Dodgers, in the meantime right now, they are okay with their outfield. I would say for the most part, they are actually pretty stacked. They still have Jock Peterson as a free agent, and they haven't signed him. And if you ask me, the Dodgers should re-sign him. It maybe not a big contract or anything, but offer him something to come back as a Dodger. Reason why? One, being a lefty bat. Two, the consistency that he continues to show in the playoffs. And that's what you need. You need that consistent bat, a guy that'll get you on base, drive some runs, and get a home run to get a rally going for the Dodgers. Jock Peterson's always a guy that's going to swing for the fences. Not the prettiest left-handed swing, a little bit, every left-handed batter always has a beautiful swing, but not Jock Peterson, unfortunately. But this is a guy that would help out the Dodgers once again in that playoff push and to keep up with the Padres because, yeah, the Padres got swept, but who's to say they're going to get swept? You know, the Dodgers, the Padres, they're looking to go all the way. It's either we win the World Series or it was a bust. So they're not looking to just make it to the NLDS, NLCS, even in the case. They want to win a World Series. They want to go to the World Series and do that. Now, as far as Joey Gallo is concerned, I don't see that happening for the Dodgers. But if he's already been a player that has been on the radar before for in the trade deadline, I wouldn't see why the Rangers wouldn't be listening to something. I think if he were to go to Yankee Stadium, a fly ball would be a home run for the lefty bat.
So much pop.
I think if they were to get Joey Gallo, I think the Blue Jays they'll still finish in second just because of that lineup for the Yankees. It's so dangerous and so nasty. Now, even going into this season, if you're the Yankees, how do you fare against this new remodeled starting rotation against the Blue Jays? And I'm really going to tune into a Yankees Blue Jays game, and I just want to watch it. And now I want to see it.
Well, I want to see. I'll get to that momentarily, but I really want to see. I want to see whatever game in the World Series, whether it's a game 2 or a game 3, however it lines up. I'd be interested in a storyline of Joe Musgrove versus Jameson Taillon.
Oh,
in
wow.
terms of the Pirates, pride of the Pirates. Although, in terms of the Blue Jays-Yankees game, how do they stack up? The Yankees, I think, built a rotation that eerily reminds me of what the Tampa Bay Rays do. And I don't think that that's by accident. Brian Cashman has assembled a rotation. He's got a ton of pieces, a lot of injury history, a lot of problems. But should he be able to capitalize and harness the best of a Corey Kluber, the best of a Jameson Taillon, if Luis Severino even comes back a quarter of what he was, pairing those individuals behind Garrett Cole and filling in the gaps with the likes of a Clark Schmidt or a Devi Garcia, you have something that has the potential to be dominant, which I think is what Cashman and company are praying for, or you have the option where everything just implodes and you kind of have a situation like last year where Cole has to basically shoulder the brunt of that rotation. And if it is left up to Garrett Cole, no matter how phenomenal or wonderful a pitcher as he may be, he cannot do that alone. And so the rotation that the Blue Jays have assembled with all those different pieces, with Ryu, with Ray, as you mentioned, with Steven Matz, I'm not trying to jump around here, but Steven Matz is not an impressive acquisition to me. It's a good move for the Mets who need to shed somebody. And I'm shuffling papers because I have notes on things to draw out. But I was thinking in my head, when you have certain visions of somebody, that Steven Matz has always been a pretty good pitcher to me. But in 2018 and 19, he only made 30 starts apiece due to some injuries, to a tune of a 9.68 ERA that was done in a little over 30 innings this past season. He had a 4.35 ERA in 579 plus innings in over 6 years. He's a rebound candidate for the Blue Jays. He has a 25% strike rate, which is impressive. But he was one of the high hit rates of any pitcher in the league. And I think when you take somebody like that and you put them in the American League East, which is a very, very offense-dominated division, I like what that spells for the Yankees. I don't know that I'm impressed for the Blue Jays. Maybe Steven Matz proves us wrong. Maybe Steven Matz ends up being a swing option in the pen for him because the Mets did utilize him in that capacity as well. But I don't know. The AL East this year, honestly, is a crapshoot, with the exception of the Orioles and Red Sox will not do anything. The Rays will still somehow win 80-some-odd games.
Yeah, that AL East is going to be a division where people will say, hey, well, with the Rays looking like they're in reconstruction mode, they just traded away arguably their best pitcher in Blake Snell. They were in the talks of trying to trade Kevin Kiermaier as well. I think that AL East can still be pretty interesting. Yankees, Blue Jays are going to be fighting it out, duking it out. You said it yourself, the Rays will be somehow winning because their lineup is still there. They still have the great team lineups that they have. Now, the Red Sox are looking like they're making moves, but I don't think that's going to be enough to keep up with these superpowers right now.
They just signed somebody as a Dodgers fan you'd be familiar with, in Kike Hernandez.
Yeah, Kike was a player that the Dodgers, I wish they could have signed him because he's one of those great utility players. The Dodgers have always been a team to be utility heavy. Your position is not permanent unless if you're Corey Seager. That's your permanent position. But everybody moves everywhere. And the fact that you lose a utility player like that, it's going to be a tough blow on the Dodgers. But in the same time, like Kike wanted to be a full-time second baseman. And he got exactly what he wanted. And a player like Kike, you can't be upset at the fact that he decided to go with the Boston Red Sox and he just wants to play every day. That's all he wants to do. And this is going to be a guy that's going to hit lefties very nicely. And he's going to be seeing his former teammate, Hyunjin Ryu, and he's going to tell him, hey, we're on opposite teams now. So now I get to face you now. So it'll be a nice little, hey, how you doing type of things. Former Dodgers meeting up like that. So that AL East, I will admit, it's not what it used to be, but it's still going to be a fight to see who is that number one team.
No, I agree 100%. Based on that as well, because he's been used as predominantly that utility player, now getting the opportunity to perhaps shine in Boston from what you've seen. And obviously things can change the more reps somebody gets. Case in point, just to use this as a parallel, Gio Urshela for many years was considered just a great utility guy, glove guy for the Cleveland Indians. The Blue Jays got him, didn't care to do anything with him, basically gave him to the Yankees for nothing due to the paramount and just constant injury brigade that happened to the Yankees in 19. He got that shot and really shown what he can do. Do you see a similar situation like that for Kike, or do you think that maybe he is more of that utility guy, or do you think he does take advantage of that opportunity?
Kike has capabilities of having a great season. I will say he can be a 20 home run guy, especially if you're going to Boston with the Green Monster. I'm going to say plus 20 home runs. I will give him 70, 80 RBIs. This guy will have a good batting average. I'm going to give him a solid 270 to 290 batting average because he excels against left-handed pitchers. And if you just give him that opportunity to play every day and give him that opportunity to be in that lineup, I really believe that he can produce good numbers like that. He's done it before in his career. And maybe if he comes back with that little show stash that he had in the beginning, anything could happen. And especially just being that right-handed batter with that Green Monster, I think Kike can have a pretty good season. It's not going to be one of those players that's going to take them over the top or anything, but it's definitely a player that I think will produce for the Red Sox.
Oh, that's good analysis. You need those role players. Not every single person is necessarily a superstar. So I think that's fantastic. Outside of these things, just to turn gears for a moment, still sticking on baseball, we don't need to dive deep into each and every person on that ballot. But as a baseball fan, what did you think of no one being elected into the Hall of Fame this year? This is the 9th time in the Hall of Fame's existence that nobody was selected by the writers to enter the Hall of Fame. Is that disheartening to you as a fan? Is it are you happy at the level of gatekeeping the writers have, or what are your thoughts regarding that issue?
Well, there's a pretty big issue going on right now as far as, does Roger Clemens deserve to go in? Does Barry Bonds deserve to get in? And I'm going to be one of those guys that if you use steroids in that era, I don't think you should be considered for it, because steroids really does make a huge difference. I get it. The steroids isn't making you swing the bat, isn't allowing you to field perfectly or anything, but just having that additional help and just having that advantage over other players, it's not right. And I think if you're good, it's because you're good. You got it. For example, like a Mike Trout, like a Mookie Betts. Once upon a time, I used to believe George Springer was a top 3 player with those guys when he was producing with the Astros. And I just don't think those guys deserve to make it to the Hall. Even Sammy Sosa, that's another guy that shouldn't make it. I think those are guys that they have to eliminate from the Hall. And unfortunately, I know a lot of people, once A-Rod gets into the ballot and such, I think that's going to be a real tough one to argue, because A-Rod is a guy that, wow, when he was with the Seattle Mariners, with Texas, that guy was a monster. And of course the Yankees too. Nothing against him with the Yankees.
But he was the difference between, and I don't mean this in a chastising way. The difference in this, A-Rod was busted for steroids. Barry Bonds was never, we know, I mean, we could look at Barry on the Pirates and Barry on the Giants. Barry was never popped for steroids. Neither was Roger Clemens, and he will still adamantly deny it to this day that he took any performance-enhancing drugs. It's a very unique, well, it's not unique because it's in sports across the gamut, but it is an interesting situation because the performance-enhancing drugs that they took, and I say they just, across the board, not singling anybody out who did or didn't.
Yeah, you're not targeting anybody in particular.
No. It wasn't against whatever they took wasn't against the rules. You had players that, unfortunately, let's say the players who took greenies and amphetamines in the 60s and 70s that are in the Hall of Fame. Everything is specific to error, and I am of the opposing thought. I think Roger Clemens needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I think Barry Bonds needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Sammy Sosa, no, I don't think Sammy Sosa needs to be in the Hall of Fame, but I would absolutely put them in because they are the best of their era. Now, was that era the steroid era? 100,000%. So that plaque has an asterisk, and that asterisk is explained by it was extremely likely that these performances were potentially influenced by steroids. It's a museum. Have a whole freaking exhibit showing about the dangers of steroids and what was impacted. But these are the best representation of that era in terms of performance. And Barry Bonds, before he took steroids, same as A-Rod, was still the best player, one of the best players to ever exist in terms of a pure baseball player. He could have gotten into the Hall of Fame without hitting 1,000 home runs. And the irony of Barry Bonds is his record-breaking home run was off of a pitcher who I think was cut and released and never made it to the majors again. That pitcher was on steroids who gave up his record-breaking home run. So to your point, it doesn't necessarily help them swing a bat. It doesn't necessarily help them throw a pitch. They are trying to get an unfair advantage, is why it should 100,000% be denoted on a plaque. But I do think that to honor the sport properly, they got to get in, but it does have to be denoted in terms of what that era was, what it represented, and why they shouldn't maybe be compared to like a Ken Griffey Jr. or a Derek Jeter, people who, just get in on their own merit and own talent, I should say.
There's a lot of guys in the halls that they were just born to do one thing and to play baseball, and they were just so naturally good at it, and it just came naturally to them. And there's a ton of guys there. And you know what? When you put it that way, maybe they should just have a spot, there in Cooperstown. Hey, there was a steroid era. These are some guys that have come out openly about using steroids, who had some pretty crazy numbers, and to show like these are some of the guys like that. I think we can agree to disagree on the steroid issue, but I mean, There's a lot of guys out there that are just naturally talented. The ballot, it is unfortunate to hear that nobody got in. I would have liked to see Kurt Schilling to make it, because that guy in the postseason, he always got the job done. Like, that guy on the mound is scary. It's scary to face a Kurt Schilling on the mound during the postseason. And the one moment that always comes up, that big 2001 World Series. I know you know that one. I know you know. I'm sorry to mention dark times. I'm sorry to mention dark times.
Okay.
But that's just one of the moments right there of Kurt Schilling taking on against the mighty Yankees in 2001. And he got the job done and helped them out with that World Series victory there. And unfortunately, he was only 16 votes away from being inducted to the Hall. And it is unfortunate to hear that nobody makes it.
It's disheartening, and I think it's honestly bad for a sport that has a hard time attracting fans in the first place. Major League Baseball does a really poor, and I love baseball. Baseball is my favorite sport. So when I say this, it's out of a place of love, not a place out of contempt. They do one of the worst jobs I've ever seen marketing their players, getting them to be household names like some of the other leagues. And the Hall of Fame, something that can kind of galvanize eyeballs in terms of your legendary players, nobody to come in. There were 14 blank ballots that came in. And I think Kurt Schilling does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I know some people didn't vote for him because of his personality. Ty Cobb's in the Hall of Fame, and Ty Cobb was an absolute horrible human being. I think anybody that knew him could attest to that. You're not in the Hall of Fame because you're Mother Teresa. You're in the Hall of Fame because of what you did on the field. I don't like Kurt Schilling. I think the dude's a jerk. I'm sure he cares about my opinion. But as a pitcher, as a performer, absolutely 100,000% deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. There's some other guys that, are increasing in terms of when they might get in. Scott Rowland is an interesting choice who's been creeping in and may actually get in the Hall of Fame. And he was a tremendous third baseman. So that's somebody else who could have gotten in. I'm surprised, and I mentioned him to you in a different context before we started recording. Billy Wagner was an extremely dominant closer, and I'm shocked out of my mind that guy gets absolutely no votes. Andrew Jones is creeping in terms of voting percentages, has been rising. I think I didn't look at his stats specifically, but eyeball test and just vivid memories of that man being one of the best outfielders I think I've ever seen in my life, just in terms of his ability to hit, his athleticism, his defense, just speed across the board. So there was options that could get. Todd Helton hasn't gotten in yet. There's some serious options that I think should have been considered.
Todd Helton is somebody that needs to be considered. He needs to be the next guy for the Rockies to get into the Hall of Fame. This guy, throughout his whole entire career, has definitely given the Dodgers a hard time, and he has not just given the Dodgers a hard time, a lot of other teams too. This is a player that definitely needs to get in. Scott Rowland, I think there needs to be an argument. There needs to be a discussion if he makes it, because I felt like Scott Rowland was the part of that rise of that third base production. After him, we started to see some more third basemen coming out of the game and starting to see guys that can hit. Scott Rowland, I saw him as a huge designated hitter. I didn't get to see too much of his third base production, but once I saw him and he was a lot playing as a designated hitter, that guy, I think, needs to be argued as maybe making it to the Hall. I think as for Wagner as well, he has to be up there with some of the elite closers up there.
He's not a Rivera or a Hoffman, but he was still, and that's, I guess, where the discrepancies come in, because it's not the Hall of Very, Very Good. It's the Hall of Fame. And the only other player that I really am disappointed with how voting has turned out, and you talked about playoff performance, and I know you're going to roll your eyes at me because of a link to PEDs. An admitted PED user, great, whether you believe it or not, was for recovery purposes, because he came out, said it right away. Andy Pettitte was one of the most dominant, I think literally the most dominant playoff pitcher of all time, lefty. Highest pickoffs of any pitcher of all time. Over 500 wins. I mean, how many countless all-star selections, how many countless World Series, and that guy doesn't get, I think, more than, under 20%, which blows my mind.
Andy Pettitte should be another player that should be considered. Considering what he did for the Yankees, really helping them out, I think the Hall of Fame shouldn't just be judged based off of your numbers, your wins, your strikeouts. Shouldn't just be considered that. What did you do when you're on the field? Like, did you help your team win a World Series? Nothing against the guys that never won a World Series. Like, that shouldn't be something. But the fact that you were a factor in helping your team win championships, those are the big moments. Regular season play is very important, but the postseason is, if you make it, exactly. There's players out there, good example, Clayton Kershaw, absolute great regular season pitcher, not the greatest postseason. We finally got to see him unleash his postseason type of pitching we've all been trying to wait for. World Series pitched great, playoffs pitched great, but if you can pitch great in the regular season and in the playoffs and in the World Series, I think that's a player that should really be considered. And if you're consistently in the playoffs, consistently in the World Series, those should also be things that should be considered. Because if you have a pitcher that's consistently losing in your starting rotation, I don't think you're going to be making it all that far in the postseason. It takes a group effort to win it. So I really think you got to look at the team that they had at the moment. You have to look at what they did, really. And to go back to what you were talking about with Curt Schilling, yeah, that guy had a lousy attitude, but none of that really matters. Again, it's not the Hall of Fame of the type of attitude you have. Like, you can be the most humbling of guys, but unfortunately, if you don't show production in the box, on the mound, on the field,
100,000%.
Sorry, there is no entry for you. I'm sorry, but you have to be a great. I
agree with you 100,000%. I think on that note, Alex, we could probably do this another hour and a half, but I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate being able to talk sports with you. You're a fantastic personality. People, and I will put the links for it in the bottom in the description, really would behoove everybody to watch Sideline Sports, because you do a tremendous job. You have interesting people join you as well, so you have some good personalities, and just you have fantastic takes, Alex. You really do.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's always a pleasure to come onto the podcast. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for shouting out the podcast. If you guys make sure to like Jeremy's episode, hit that subscribe button for Jeremy, and of course, I appreciate it.
You as well.
Feel free to come on Sideline Sports Podcast whenever, Jeremy. You have a spot.
Hey, I appreciate that. Anytime you want to talk a little bit about baseball or anything else, let me know. Hey, man, I enjoyed the spirited debates. I enjoyed getting in a little bit on these teams. We can definitely have dived a little bit more. We'll see if our thoughts on the Chiefs come through. And as the season starts, maybe we'll do a couple more things there too. But everybody, please, it'll be in the description. Go to Sideline Sports Podcast. As he said, for me, like the episode. Give this man a sub. He definitely deserves it. This episode more than some others, you definitely got to hear my point of view. So, Alex, we'll 100,000% see you again in the future. And until next week, everybody, thanks for listening.
Take care.